Taking care of your eyes shouldn't be a hassle. That's why Warby Parker is a one-stop shop for all your vision needs. Our prescription glasses and sunglasses are expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Stop by a nearby store or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. Did we mention we offer eye exams and take vision insurance too? For everything you need to see, head to your nearest Warby Parker store or visit warbyparker.com today. That's warbyparker.com.
Business is booming, but you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think unpaid bills were just part of it. Ugh. But batch payments? Wow. Automated accounts payable? Even better. All in one place. That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No bills in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search XERO for your free trial. Conditions apply.
Here's a shift worth noting. Better healthcare is care that meets patients where they are. United Health Group is bringing it directly to living rooms. This is a win for patients managing chronic conditions. And here's the interesting thing. By closing those care gaps, administering in-home exams, and identifying risks earlier, more diseases can be prevented and patient outcomes can improve. In 2025 alone, United Health Group patients received over 19 million home visits. Learn more at unitedhealthgroup.com/commitment.
This series is sponsored by Books at One, a social enterprise dedicated to transforming bookshops into community hubs that promote literacy nationwide. Welcome to Aran Island Discs, a podcast series where we talk to Irish people from different walks of life as they reflect on their own journeys. Join me, Rossa McDermott, as we explore the many aspects of Irishness and what it means to each of our guests through life's ups and downs. Dave Hannigan, welcome to Aran Island Discs.
Thank you very much for having me, Ross. So delighted to be here.
And the first trick question is, have you been to the Aran Islands?
I have not. There is one island off Ireland that I've spent any time on, and that was Spike Island, which was the famous prison. And I had a glorious 5 hours there a couple of summers back with my brother, because we knew a few lads growing up where we grew up. There was a few lads spent time on Spike in the 80s. Yeah. It was the juvenile jail then. Yeah. So the joyriders from our community all went there, and we visited that wing, and we saw some graffiti of lads that we grew up with, as well as all the other history, like going back 200 years. Spike Island, tremendous place to spend an afternoon. Get the boat out from Cove there. Really, really great piece of history. Very, very interesting place.
You weren't there for any misdemeanors, obviously, so yeah, that's good.
No, they let us back on the boat. We got off at the end of the day.
Yeah. And how do you describe yourself, Dave, in your head? Are you a journalist, a lecturer, a teacher? You know, you're such a mixed career like all of us. Looking back at yourself, how would you say to somebody if you went in the elevator, what do you do?
Well, I started off as a journalist, a sports journalist. Because when you say journalist, it sounds like you're a real journalist. Because sports journalism is very different than real journalism. So I was a sports journalist for many years. And then I kind of segued into this teaching history at a community college here on Long Island. And then I got a full-time job at that 11 years ago, sorry. So I've been a kind of, that's been my full-time gig really for the last 11 years, college history professor. But I still obviously do journalism, and I write books as well. But if you're looking at my tax returns, it's my main income is as a college history professor.
All right. We won't do that. But one description, I think the Examiner had somewhere, you are a prolific writer. I think that's a word for you. You do have an output consistently over a range of subjects, which is quite impressive.
That's very complimentary. Thank you, Rasa. No, I do. I suppose when you're a sports journalist, you go back to my training was, I used to work for the Sunday Tribune. That was my first job. You were doing 3 or 4 pieces a week there of different sizes to deadline. And that kind of stays with you then. And I've written a column for the Irish Times now for the last 12 years every week. So that's 600 of those. Yeah. In the archive. And I write books. I write books in my spare time, and I love that. I love researching books more than writing them, actually. But yeah, no, I do. I keep busy. I enjoy, if I'm not writing books, I'm reading books. So, I guess that's...
Well, it's the range of stuff from Brendan Behan to Dev's Time in the States to your more recent one about do we need Roy Keane around, or what, the sport. And then the fundamental love you have for sport
Yeah,
boxing, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, I think I should clarify like that. My love of boxing is a love of Muhammad Ali. Just an interest in Muhammad Ali, because he is the most fascinating sportsman ever. I think, people can argue about that, but in my opinion, it's a subjective thing. He absolutely is. And then regarding the other stuff, I guess I've always just been drawn to write about stuff that interests me. Like, if you're going to write a book for a year and a half or whatever, 2 years if it takes you that, you generally want to love the subject or be interested. Yeah. You're not getting rich from any of these books, so you really must enjoy it to do it, and you must be interested. And Being came to America, I never realized how big Being was in America. So that was a fascinating story to tell. And there's actually a guy trying to make a movie of that, has been trying to make a movie of that for the last couple of years. I think it would make a great movie, because Being is an extraordinary character, complex, lovable, but also rogue and with a dark side to him. And I don't think any Irishman had ever been a bigger celebrity in America than Being in the 60s was. Maybe U2 afterwards and some of our movie stars, but Being was very big. And then, the other stories, De Valera, I was attracted to because it was over here, and it was actually a picture from Fenway Park. The day De Valera spoke there, and the place was absolutely jam-packed, summer's day in 1919. And that picture just prompted me to go down a rabbit hole. And I guess that's what happens to me. I go down rabbit holes and I end up writing books about whatever I find down the rabbit hole.
Did you meet Ali?
I didn't. When I first wrote about Ali in Croke Park, I did make an attempt to get an audience with Ali. But the price that they quoted me for an audience with Ali was many multiples of what I was getting paid to write the book about Muhammad Ali. But I went to see his daughter fight in a casino in upstate New York. She was fighting Joe Frazier's daughter, Leila Ali versus Jackie Frazier-Lyde. And I went up there thinking, he might turn up to that. Joe Frazier did turn up to it, but Ali didn't, because he was actually at a NASCAR race.
Getting paid.
That weekend, getting paid, yeah. So, that was the time it was like, I don't know how much I would have got out of him.
At that stage of his life,
yeah. Yeah, he was quite restricted in his communication that was 2001.
No, I was struck by that anecdote, because you have this view of this, not puritanical, but why did he go for the money when his daughter was boxing, So, but his life was different at that stage. So the heyday would have been that Croke Park time when he was in the full flow.
Yeah, like the funny thing about the Croke Park one was when I first came across that story in the 90s, I thought, that was Ali. That must have been Ali at the end of his career in Croke Park. Yeah. And I'm like, no, it was 1972. It was before the Thriller in Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle. This was Ali kind of at the midway point of his career, really. So, like, Ireland got to see him, like, in his peak or very close to his peak.
Yeah, and it was Cathal O'Shannon, was it, who did the interview?
Yeah, that's the famous, fantastic. Like, I've watched 1,000 Ali interviews, and I think the Cathal O'Shannon interview in RT is just an absolute epic, wonderful piece. If I was teaching journalism, I would make students watch that,
No, he really gets inside him, doesn't he, in a very subtle, low-key way.
Yeah, and he's, again, he was not a sports journalist, so he was bringing a newsman's approach to the chat, and I think the chat was all the better for that.
Is being Irish important to you, Dave? What does it matter?
Oh, no, it does. It does. I guess when you're away from Ireland, I think it can matter more to you at different times. It can be more important to you. When we're speaking today, my eldest boy, he's 26. Abe, he's been in Cork and Dublin. He's going from Cork to Dublin right now there with his girlfriend, and he's been in Ireland for a week. And it's very, very important to me. He was born in Ireland. He was 4 months old when we moved over here. It's very, very important to me that my kids have a connection with Ireland and feel their Irishness, not being a forced way, not like, I don't make them march in St. Patrick's Day parades or any of that kind of shamroguery, but like, there is a connection. I want them to have that connection always. And I think they also enjoy that connection themselves.
Yeah, well, it's a tricky balance, isn't it? You don't want to ram it down their throats, but it's an important part of their culture or their origins. And in Abe's case, he was born here, even though he might not remember all that much.
He was born here, and he used to play soccer when he was young, and then basketball. I said, Jesus, there was a kids' Gaelic football team on Long Island, but it was about an hour from our house, and I was going to bring him there. And then I was putting him in the car to go there one night, and I'm like, I think this is for me, not for him. I don't think this is, I just didn't do it. I didn't follow through on it because I'm like, I think he does enough sport, and I don't think I need to be put him in a car for 2 hours just so I can fulfill some fantasy of him kicking an O'Neill's football around the place,
Well, that's the difference. We travel with our own baggage, and sometimes we over-transfer it. And you have to say, I have 2 daughters, so I didn't have that issue. And I was back from the States by then, or came back because of them. But it's difficult, not difficult, but it's different when you're in a foreign country trying to keep your own culture going without pushing it too far and getting rejected.
It's got to be organic. And it's like, it's funny now, two of my sons, they watch the Two Johnnies. And, the 15-year-old and the 26-year-old, and they're very into Irish kind of culture, if we want to call that culture, Irish entertainment stuff, and Young Offenders now and stuff like that, and the Pogues. So like, it's weird. It's weird the things that they pick up themselves, or hopefully I would take some credit maybe for some of the music stuff that they picked up. But you love to see it at the same time. It's important to you. And
also the transfer of information now is different by internet, by this, that, and the other. In my time, we used to wait for the tapes of the Irish rugby games to come out on the Aer Lingus flight on a Sunday, so we'd watch them on a Sunday evening in Boston. You know what I mean? Now they have instant access to things in Ireland.
Yeah, it's amazing. And actually one of the things Abe did when he was in Ireland was he went to see Cork City FC versus Kerry FC at Turner's Cross with his girlfriend, who, as I said, geez, if she doesn't break up with him after that,
she must really love him.
Yeah, so, like, what? Yeah, we're going to Ireland to watch Cork City versus Kerry FC. Yeah. So I'm thrilled about that. I'm thrilled that he went there, but I also think it's a weird place to bring you into.
It is indeed. And when did you go to the States? In 2000, was it?
Yeah, I came over here in the summer of 2000. Abe, my first son, had just been born, and my wife, Kathy, was from Long Island, and she had some health problems after he was born, and we moved over here that summer so she could be near her family.
You want to leave Ireland, or you want to go to the States, or was
Well, I'd been going over and back to the States. Like, we were married 4 years then, so we'd been going over to the States once or twice a year. So I was very into the American sports culture at that time. And, I also was quite into the idea of coming to America, just trying my hand and seeing what it was like, and having a go at something different. I was doing the Premier League beat and the Irish national team soccer beat for the Sunday Times when I left. And, I was fine, but I'd done it for a few years, and I was quite up for doing something else. So no, I was happy to come. At the time, I was interested in trying to do something different.
And being Irish in the States in those days was probably a bit easier than it had been for decades before. Being Irish was trendy.
Yeah, the Irish accent always gets you get a certain license from it, and it comes to even weird things like you blow a stop sign, the cop pulls you over, and you start speaking Irish. And actually, one day I was in New York City, and I didn't learn to drive till I was 29, so I wasn't a great driver the first few years I was here, and I was in New York City, and I went the wrong way.
And did you learn with a shift stick or automatic?
Oh, I learned with a shift stick in Dublin, but I only drove for 1 year in Dublin. Then I came out here. I was driving New York City, went the wrong way down a one-way street. This cop pulls me over. He doesn't give me a ticket. Feels bad for me, but I'm so rattled that I went 10 blocks and I did it again. and then the second cop left me off
as well.
Yeah, and I was just like, wow, this accent is a potent weapon, And the other thing I suppose about it is I've never lived in Irish neighbourhoods or Irish enclaves. And, in the early days, for many years, I used to go to an AOH hall to watch the hurling and the football with all the older Irish people who congregate in these places. But then when the satellite or when the online stuff changed, I no longer go there. And I miss that because that was a bit of crack to go there. I would often be the youngest person there because I don't think many Irish were emigrating in the early 2000s. And the older Irish, they had great stories. They were different. They'd come here under different circumstances and tougher circumstances.
Much tougher.
And I always found them. And they were always usually kind of remarkable people who'd carved out great lives for themselves, but like had served in the military here in order to pay to go to college. A lot of those older people would have worked in London to pay their fare to come to America. And then, they would tell you like there'd be one phone call at Christmas, Ireland.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So that was those people went through really, really so much tougher circumstances than we ever did.
Yeah. My first summer in the States, in Atlantic City it was, back in 81. I remember it was the Irish pub. People used to come there every summer. And if you told them Ireland had colour TVs, fridges, it kind of broke their heart, because the motivation from going to the States in their time was because Ireland didn't have that stuff. I remember talking to one guy, and I was set back by, I was actually blown his bubble of how he'd worked for 30 or 40 years.
You could have all had all this if you stayed at home.
Exactly, if you waited long enough. Yeah, I remember that. It's difficult. And how did you find then when you settled in, being Irish was cool because you had U2? Things about Ireland, in my time, U2 were just starting. But being Irish in Boston, in a kind of waspish culture, you're a stereotype. I played rugby, come in on Monday with scars. Oh, you're in a fight. No, I wasn't in a fight.
They get the stereotypes, you know.
Yeah.
Like I don't drink. I gave up drinking many years ago, but I was at work one day, and it was the day after St. Patrick's Day. And the guy comes up and me at the copier. He said, "Are you going to be long?" I said, "Oh no, just a second." He goes, "Well, I'm not going to ask you to hurry up because I'd say you're hungover."
Yeah.
I'm just like, what?
It's gas, isn't it?
I'm like, hungover? We've never been in a pub together. I don't think, what the hell?
No.
Why would we, people just have that, but also like we kind of, sometimes, and this annoys me, is like we bring it on ourselves when we promote Ireland, and we promote it as like a place to go drinking, and that drives me nuts.
I do agree with you.
That annoys the hell out of me. The longer I'm here, the more annoyed I get at that.
Yeah, and the first thing we bring visitors to Ireland is the Guinness brewery and up to the bar. Sometimes I say that's not the way to do it, but that's how we get our stereotype,
Yeah, that's it. That's how we get the tourist dollars in too.
Does the word resilience mean anything to you?
It does, yeah. I mean, I think resilience is probably the most important thing you can have in your arsenal. Because like life has a way of being.
Yeah, but sometimes these days it's become a trendy kind of Instagram thing. You have to have resilience. But I think resilience is a particular Irish thing, or you have lived it, haven't you?
Yeah, I've lived it, but I don't think it's something you can, I don't think it's something you can learn or you want to learn. You know what I mean? It's something that just happens to you, and you discover that you have this inside in you, that you have this. I know my boys have shown extraordinary resilience in the last couple of years following the death of their mom. Mm-hmm. Incredible strength, courage, and just in small ways. Like it's not like an Instagrammable thing. It's just like getting up in the morning, going to school, getting on with your life, doing the best you can, despite having this terrible kind of tragedy visited upon you. Like that kind of resilience. That to me is what resilience is, and it's not like I say this to people like all the movies are always like these big moments, and I said no, it's 1,000 small moments where people just get up and get on with it and are not kind of, beaten down by it, because life absolutely, beats the crap out of us all and knocks the edges off us all. Yeah,
I agree with you. I had a stroke 5 years ago, and that's why I lose my voice every now and again. I say the same thing. It's just one step by step. To me, it was nothing. The only way forward was to do what you had to do. And I hear what you're saying. Resilience now is kind of a marketing thing.
Yeah, when it's actually something like this,
you just do what you have to do.
Yeah, it's in you, and you don't discover the depths of it. That you don't discover how much of it is in you until you're forced to kind of dig down deep and find it. And it's personal, and it's just, and as I said, it's not dramatic in any way. It's just allowing you to continue with your ordinary life, but actually just doing that, putting one foot in front of the other, can be the most extraordinary thing.
And your family, are you the oldest, the middle? How many of you are there?
I had 4 siblings. I grew up in a place called Toker, a suburb of Cork City, that where corporation built like a couple of thousand houses at the end of the 60s and 70s and put them out there, and didn't put a lot of facilities out there at the same time. I was the youngest of 4, so I think I had it easiest. I had 2 older sisters and an older brother, and I had a great childhood. Very lucky. We were working class. My dad worked as a doorman in AIB, and my mom was a homekeeper who minded kids and did ironing for teachers that we knew and stuff like that. And just, very working class, but lovely, lovely home. My mom was one of 12. My dad was one of 10. Oh. I was the first person in the extended family to go to college, even though we grew up like we were 15 minutes walk from UCC.
Yeah. think it was, I read somewhere, because it reminded me, I did an ankle course in Bishopstown.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I was reading, so they brought back, Bunny Carr ran this car communications course, and the only place I could do it way back in 83 was in Bishopstown. I had never been to Cork in my life, had to stay in digs. So you did something similar. It wasn't Anco, it was something else, was it?
I wrote about the Roy Keane.
That's right, yeah.
Anco. He did the FOSS
That's
course.
the FOSS course.
The FOSS course. But
He went to Dublin. He went to Dublin. I went to Cork.
He went to Dublin. Yeah, I didn't. I actually went to school quite near where the Anco place was in Bishopstown. I went to Columnist boys' school out there because Cotorca was a massive area, but they didn't give us any secondary school. There was no secondary school in that suburb. We had to go to either Columnist Street on one side or Columnist on the other.
Because I grew up abroad, on the Anco course with me was a man called Eamon Cregan from Limerick Hurler. And we had to do these media interviews. And he was going off to interview this guy called JBM, who I hadn't a clue who he was.
The one true God.
The one true God. I was really slow at picking these things up. So now when I read about, you were saying that Gary Neville and Roy Keane went recently to Cork to do their gig, they called on God himself.
Yeah, you have to bring God. He is the one true God. It's like, if you meet somebody in Cork of my generation and they don't tell you JBM is their hero, then they're immediately suspicious.
They're fakes.
Like, yeah, there's something wrong with that person. I don't know what it is, but we're going to find out soon enough. He really is the most incredible, the one true deity. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I picked that up and I've never forgotten it, Dave, I have to say. And speaking of deities, where'd your fascination come then for Roy Morris Keane then? Just because he's a Cork man and polemic and...
Well, I mean, he's box office, I suppose, is one thing. He remains box office. I think, well, my fascination is I grew up the same time as him in Cork in the 70s and 80s. He's slightly younger than me, but I would have come up against him on the schoolboy soccer fields of Cork in the 80s. He was playing for a team called Rockmount. That's right. He played for a team called Casement Celtic, and his team was this all-conquering superstar team where he was only one of like 5 or 6 great players they had at 15, 16. I remember him from that, and then obviously he broke through at Forest, and we were all incredibly proud in Cork of that. And then when I became a sports journalist in 1993, after I graduated from DCU, I covered him a little bit. I interviewed him a couple of times. And then I made a documentary about him for RTE with a good friend of mine, Colm O'Callaghan, with Roy Keane's permission. And we made like a documentary called Have Boots Will Travel in 1997, which included a long kind of sit-down interview with him at a time when he didn't do too many
kind of things, yeah.
So it was a bit of a coup for us to get it. So I've written an awful lot about him for many years. And then when I moved abroad, I'm watching the Keane career as it evolved, like the last vestiges of his playing career, the Sunderland years, and now his reincarnation as this influencer. And I'm watching it, and I just thought, like, it's the most fascinating arc of a career because the place he came out of, like you're talking about Anco now, Bishopstown in the 80s, like that's the most classically 80s Ireland detail. Yeah. And I'm like, that Ireland, like that he came out of, and then this new Ireland that he now embodies, this like, affluent, kind of done well for himself, doesn't suffer fools. So I wanted to research that, and I went back actually and found, even as a Corkman, I was stunned to find how backward and third world we were in 1971. There was an ad in the newspaper the week Roy Keane was born. 1971, there was an ad in the Evening Echo, and it was for a job. Shoe factory was looking for girls for full-time work, age 11 to 15.
Wow.
And I remember looking at it going, Jesus, like, if you told me 1871, I'd say fine, but 1971, we were like, so our parents could say to their 11-year-old daughter, great news, we found you a job. So anyway, I wanted to write about how he came from that Ireland, and then all the changes that Ireland went through in the last 30, 40 years, that he caused some of the changes, he reflected some of the changes, and that's basically what I wanted. And I had that idea maybe 10 or 15 years ago first. And then as it happened, this new stage of his career, I think, made it even more relevant than it was then.
Yeah, I mean, but also it touched upon the things of Irish character that fascinate me, our idiosyncrasies, our hypocrisies, things we say. Like Roy epitomizes the changes. What he said yesterday won't be what he'll say tomorrow. In our time, it was Dunphy-esque, we used to call it. Now it's kind of, it's Keane-esque.
Absolutely. And also like
But that's our character as Irish people, isn't it?
It is. And it's also like the English think he's very funny and very witty. And I'm like, but that...
There's
like,
millions of them.
Yeah, if you go into any pub in Ireland, like, I call it competitive quipping, like competitive storytelling. And in fact, when I go home to Ireland, if I go to meet people, I find like I'm off the pace. You know?
Yeah.
It's like when people are telling stories and every story turns out to be the last story and every gag. And I'm like, geez, I can't keep up here. Like I'm out of my depth because I'm living in America and I'm not exposed to this kind of fast-paced witticisms and quips. So like he definitely embodies that. But also like, you know, the world that you described there, like the 80s, unemployment, doom and gloom, no great prospects. Then he has the battle with the drink, which is, you know, the national drink problem kind of thing. And he conquers that and you know, comes out the other side of it. So there's a lot in there, you know, Celtic Tiger Ireland, the changes of that, the changes of mentality and culture around that. And he changes too in and around that time. And he gets into bed with Celtic Tiger Ireland when he becomes a manager of Sunderland.
He does, yeah. Epitomizes it, yeah. The story of, you know, driving a big Mercedes and the typical Irish thing in those days, who do these people think they are, is something that affects the way we deal with each other with relation to success, failure, and our characters. Something about the way we behave to each other that way often fascinates me. In the States, they congratulate you on your success. They accept failure. Here we can't deal with, if you fail, nobody ever calls you again. And if you're success, you couldn't have done it legitimately. There must be something, stroke or something. I mean,
I remember somebody told the story of like the differences in Ireland. If you have a failed business, nobody will touch you like if you fail. Whereas here, and I don't know this to be true, I don't run businesses, but if I hear the story is like you go into the bank manager and the bank manager say, all right, what did you learn now? What did you learn from the last business that's going to make a success of this business? And they'll almost believe like that you are better equipped now because you failed first time out, you know, growth mindset. You've learned from that kind of thing.
Yeah, whereas the Irish way is we never fail to forget your failures and remind you of them every time you pop your head up to start again, which I found very discouraging when I came back from the States, having been through many failures myself. You know,
yeah, I wonder, has it changed now? I wonder, is the younger generation less like that? You know, I wonder, are the people who grew up with a bit more affluence and a bit more positivity?
Yeah, I think they are.
Business is booming. But you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think spreadsheets were just part of it. Ugh. But real-time cash flow? Wow. Invoices that chase themselves? Even better. Books that automate? That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No spreadsheet in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search Xero for your free trial. Conditions apply.
Taking care of your eyes shouldn't be a hassle. That's why Warby Parker is a one-stop shop for all your vision needs. Our prescription glasses and sunglasses are expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Stop by a nearby store or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. Did we mention we offer eye exams and take vision insurance too? For everything you need to see, head to your nearest Warby Parker store or visit warbyparker.com today. That's warbyparker.com.
I look at my own children, it's very different now, Dave. It is, whether it's all good, some of the old values have been lost, but it is probably different. But in my time, it wasn't. And what you're saying, it was different in you. It's same for you in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, like when you live here, you definitely have your attitude has changed. You know, like you do. I mean, I'm here 26 years. Like I haven't picked up the accent, but I definitely have picked up some American ways. There's no. And, you know, an American way of life or whatever, you know, there's no doubt about that. Like,
and if you came back here and said something in a pub, you do some Yankee term, we'd remind you very quickly, oh, he's American.
Oh, I remember once one of my friends here was visiting and they saw me giving somebody a high five and they were absolutely appalled.
Oh, looking for a gas station.
Yeah, it's exactly that kind of stuff.
And music, Dave, is there songs have accompanied you over the years that for good days, bad days?
Well, I will tell you this, Bassa, I love music. I had a great childhood. I played a lot of sport. I played Gaelic football, hurling and soccer. And when I look back, my only regret is that I never learned an instrument because I play the guitar now really badly and I thoroughly enjoy it. But I wished I'd have done more of that when I was 15 and 16 and 17, because I adore music. It's really, really important to me. I think as an immigrant, one of the things that fascinates me is the music stuff, in terms of like, this may have happened to you when you were in Boston. The immigrant songs, which I would regard like I would regard those as like my parents' maudlin set songs. Like when you move away, it's like these songs like Spencer Hill, Jesus, they hit so differently, you know. I know how many years I was here, like, but, and then you just one day hit me, you know, the old ones are all dead and gone, and the young ones turning grey, and you're like, Jesus, that's my life. Like, that's what's happening to me now. Every time I come home, like, the old ones are all dead and gone, and the young ones turning grey. You know, that's your thing. And even stuff like the Saw Doctors, you know, we turned left to Clare Galway, I could feel the lump in my throat. Jesus, like, there are certain songs now that I listen to or that come up on my playlist, and I think, oh, Jesus. Makes you kind of, wherever you are, obviously you're 3,000 miles from home, and suddenly you're reminded of it. You know?
Yeah. I used to think Van Morrison was a grumpy old fella until one night in Boston, I heard some song of his latest album, and it stuck with me, and Coney Island, and then I said, my God, it's funny, when you're away, they sound totally different.
I remember being in London with my Auntie Peggy one time, who was from my mother's sister, lived in South London, and I remember her bringing me to an Irish club in the 90s, and I just didn't get it. Like, I was like, Jesus, why are they all
here?
Why are they all here singing? And why are they all singing these dirges? And I'm like, fast forward a few years, like, I'm blasting these dirges in the car, and you know, tearing my eye, lump in my throat, thinking of home, you know. So music is such a vital part of my life, and you know, it really, when I write, I listen to music. I listen to everything from like stuff I loved in the 80s, the stuff I grew up with, to sometimes just put on death metal to block out the noise of the house.
Yeah.
You know, classical as background music, even though I don't know the first thing about classical music, you know, I just it seems like a nice background sound as you're trying to write something. So no, and I guess, you know, I find this out with students every day. Like when you make musical references, like I'll say something about the Smiths or something, and then one of them will go, "Oh, my dad listens to that." And then, you know, they don't get musical reference. You realize very quickly how old you are when they just look at
you time stamp yourself very quickly.
Yeah, and they've been used. They've been used by your musical references.
Yeah. How do you smell the Smythes, the Smiths, the Smythes? Yeah.
Yeah.
And quotes and poetry, Dave, is there anything that you stick to or is strong for? I know you're a great reader. I've seen some of the list of books you've turned to.
In terms of poetry, like I love Kavanagh. In fact, you know, somebody reminded me the other week, I wrote a piece about my father and a bet that he had on the day of my wedding in Norman to win the Masters, a bet which obviously didn't come off. And somebody, you know, one of my friend Gavin actually said to me, it was basically the Kavanagh poem, like every old man I see, reminds me of my father when he had fallen in love with death one time when sheaves were gathered, which was a Leaving Cert poem, but actually where I'm sitting now, I can look on my shelves and I can see Patrick Kavanagh, the complete poems, with kind of a black spine. And I love that. I love Kavanagh. And I love Yeats, and I love the Waterboys. The Waterboys did an album, I'm not sure if it was Mike Scott as Mike Scott or Mike Scott with the Waterboys, An Appointment with Mr. Yeats, which is the Yeats poems put to music. He had done one of them, The Lake Isle of Innisfree, earlier on an album, but then An Appointment with Mr. Yeats is just a wonderful, wonderful working of all those Yeats poems, some Yeats poems to music. Yeah. Love that. Absolutely love, because I love the Waterboys, love Mike Scott, and that to me was like two greats coming together.
And obviously, I've read in the prologue the variation of the Kavanagh bit when you say no man will adequately understand Ireland in the last half century without knowing Rory Keane. Well, that is an almost impossible task. Any attempt to do so must begin with the time and place from whence he came. And that's the start of that discussion where the Keanification of Ireland, if you can get inside Keane's head, you do get to understand what Ireland is and has been, has changed and become, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, that's my thesis.
I think it's a valid thesis. Having lived abroad, come back, I have to say, I used to think it was me, Dave, having this wild idea, but I think Keane personifies wherever you stand on that famous Ireland issue. It testifies to what you believe are the values in Ireland or not, as the case may be. And a Keanification is a good jargon, maybe it is, but it sums up what Aran is to people who've been away and come back.
Yeah, and he is like at different times, like he's the national argument, he's the national obsession, and I think you make a great point, like he epitomized, and I didn't make this in the book, but you're making it out, and it's a really good insight, is he has that very Irish tendency to, I said that last week, but this is what I'm saying today. And I stand over what I said today, I deny what I said last week, and that is just one more way in which he epitomizes it. But again, I'm sure people could argue against it. But my point is, like, there's a bunch of kids, people in their 20s, who never saw this guy play football and don't remember what an elemental force he was on the field. And yet they all know him and they watch him and they listen to him and they forward the memes of him and the clips of him that go viral. And like he exists for them in a completely different post-playing career iteration, as a kind of as a celebrity, if you want to use that dreadful word. But that's what he is to them, isn't he? He's a celebrity.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all they know. I remember Tony Ward saying when he was teaching in St. Andrews, they didn't realise he ever played rugby. He was just a teacher. And that's when he realised he was getting old. You know what I mean? That's the way life is.
It's amazing. Time passes.
It does to all of us. And an iconic moment, a high you would look back on, Dave, a selfish moment where you said, geez, I done well, that went well. Do you have one of those?
I mean, professionally, there's moments like the first byline I had in the Sunday Tribune, which was in January 1993, when they sent me to an AIL rugby game in Greystones. I was a college student at DCU and I was sent out to Greystones. I got the number 84. Was that the bus to Greystones?
Yeah, it still is.
I got the number 84 out from town and I'd never been to Greystones. I was a stranger in a strange land, I tell you. And I'm going to say this, I did not know whether the rugby ball was pumped or stuffed. But the AIL was big at the time. The All Ireland League Rugby was big at the time, and they needed people to cover games. And Ger Siggins, the sports editor, gave me the Saturday work, and that was the first piece of work I got. And I remember going out the next morning to buy.
He was off doing cricket somewhere, was he?
He didn't need the desk back then. He used to just be there like the man on the desk, and he was a brilliant sports editor. Yeah, he wasn't that brilliant because he sent me to. but anyway, the thrill the next morning of seeing my name in the Sunday Tribune. What's it called? Dr. Hickey Park? Is that the name of it?
Dr. Hickey Park, yeah.
Dr. Hickey Park, yeah. Dave Hannigan at Dr. Hickey Park. And I'm like, no, God, I'd hate to see it because it's it.
Business is booming. But you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think unpaid bills were just part of it. Ugh. But batch payments? Wow. Automated accounts payable? Even better. All in one place. That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No bills in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search XERO for your free trial. Conditions apply.
Every idea starts with a problem. Warby Parker's was simple. Glasses are too expensive. So they set out to change that. By designing glasses in-house and selling directly to customers, they're able to offer prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Warby Parker glasses are made from premium materials like impact-resistant polycarbonate and custom acetate. And they start at just $95, including prescription lenses. Get glasses made from the good stuff. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you.
Awful gobbledygook. I hope I got the scorer's name right. And that, but that meant a lot to me. I'd read the sports pages all my life, or since my mid-teens, I'd become obsessed with sports writing, and I used to read all the magazines and newspapers I'd get my hands on, and that was, the Sunday Tribune was a fantastic newspaper at that time, albeit financially strapped, and it meant so much to me, and I know my father was a man who read newspapers. He left school at the age of 12, but he read newspapers avidly every day, and it was a big deal for him and my mom too, but my dad in particular, to buy the newspaper that Sunday morning. And, it was that was the start of my career, really. And it was, a really big moment for me in a very weird place. in a weird place, covering a sport I knew absolutely nothing about.
And people stopped in the street. Are you Dave Hannigan?
No, and then I got to actually, those next few months, they sent me all over the place, all over South Dublin. Wow. And I was like, wow, this is a strange place, South Dublin. I went to places like Terranure.
My God.
And St. Mary's. And I'm like, wow, These are real places.
Hannigan on tour.
Yeah, this was like, I brought my passport most of the time. I ended up living in Dunleary afterwards.
My God.
I became a very sophisticated Dublin person.
Yeah.
But that was it.
But it's amazing in those days, you had to have knowledge. You didn't have Google. You had to know scores, remember players, facts, figures to fill your column as you go. And knowledge was important. Now you can just Google things and people think they were there in Italia 90, but they weren't. You just see the videos.
And the thing about back then, I guess, was thank God there was very little video of the games I was covering, because they would have said, that's not what happened at all.
A very different match.
And you used to have to find a payphone, and we didn't have a cell phone on the desk then. Yeah. And then you find a payphone and do it, which was very stressful, but great training and a great way to learn the business. And the Sunday Tribune was a fantastic place because it was, the paper was always in financial trouble. So anybody that was any good immediately would get offers from other newspapers and they'd leave. And then the Tribune's policy was nearly always to promote from within. So you ended up doing work that you were absolutely not ready for and not quite qualified to do, but you were thrown in at the deep end, and it was a fantastic place for that. Yeah. And that's why so many there was Dennis Walsh, Paul Kimmage, David Walsh, Paul Howard, yeah. Jerry Thornley, Johnny Watterson, Sean Moran, Brendan Fanning, all these guys were in the Tribune in and around that time. And you're like, Jesus, that was quite the stable in the mid-90s.
And in fairness, they're all still banging away today, and journalism of quality in a market where it's getting tougher and tougher to sustain. Like, those generation people won't come back because it's just not the same game anymore.
No, in the acknowledgements to the Keane book, I made the point that, like, I spent a long time researching the newspaper coverage of Keane going right back to 1990. And really the way in which the Irish sports journalists covered Keane, all the newspapers, like tabloids and broadsheet, just was so comprehensive and so rigorous and from so many different angles. And I'm like, I don't think we're ever going to see coverage of that breadth and that depth ever again, because people don't value newspapers now. People are not willing to pay, and then the industry is shrinking. And I don't think that's good for society. And I don't think it's good for society in terms of sport, but I think on a wider point, it's not good for society in general, in terms of like much more important things than sporting matters.
Yeah, but in terms of articulation, people being able to write, comprehension, those basic skills are also disappearing, Dave, which is more frightening on a greater level. Like, to write well, clearly, succinctly, your ABCs, as we used to say to them, doesn't exist anymore.
We have a reading problem. Like, somebody who writes books, we have a reading problem.
We do.
And we also, I don't know what it's like in Ireland. I'll just give you the American example. It's a gender divide here too, because, and I do this everywhere I go. If I'm on a train, if I'm in an airport, if I'm on the beach, I always look to see if there's people reading. And you do find people reading. You find women of all ages reading.
Yeah.
You find, middle-aged women, old women, young girls, teenage girls. They're always reading books. And you do not find, especially young men, you do not find any young men reading. That's just with books in their hands in public places, on planes, boats and trains kind of thing. You do not see it. And that to me is a dreadful sign, and certainly not a positive development for our society.
Let that be a warning to Charlie, Abe and Finn. Alert, get a book quick.
Well, that fight has been ongoing, and I think that fight has been lost.
It's been lost for sure.
In fact, somebody said, why should you write a book about writing? I said, well, I want to write a book that my sons might actually read.
They might.
But so far, the book's been in the house 6 or 7 weeks and nobody's picked up a copy yet. So,
you're only the father. What would you know about Keane?
That's it. It's a losing battle. I know that.
And the Brendan Behan story, is that one of your nearly there stories that could have been, should have been, might have been, making the movie?
No, it's ongoing. It's ongoing.
So that's the same seed, the same kind of idea. I know the book was written, but they're still interested in making a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie based upon the book. I mean, the book came out, 12 years ago now, but there's been a couple of attempts to turn it into a movie. But that's, movies are very pie in the sky, a really difficult thing to pull off. There's a guy involved in it right now who's trying his best to get it over the line. And, I'd love that, obviously, but who knows? These things have a way of never actually getting done. But fingers crossed, and we'll say our novenas or what have you.
Well, the way Hollywood's going Irish this time next year, Dave, we could be talking to you again.
I don't think Hollywood's going anywhere. Actually, where Hollywood is now. I think it's like the rest of us. It's going bust.
Finally, now to wrap up, when you look back on your life as it is now, even you're still young, are you surprised where you got? Is this where you were destined to be? Well, how would you kind of summarize it, Dave?
Well, I don't know. I'll say this. In 1981, I came to America. I was 20. I came out in a J1 with two friends of mine, and we were in Greenwich, Connecticut, working in a country club. And my two pals loved it. And they were like, I'm going to try and get a green card. I'm going to finish UCC, trying to get a green card, trying to come out here or whatever. And they're like, what about you? And I'm like, I have no interest in ever living here. I can tell you that now.
Serious?
I've been here. I've seen it. I'm fine with it. I've had a great time, but really not my scene. Don't think I could never see myself here. And then if you wind the clock forward 30, was it 30 years? Yeah, it was 30 years later. I was in New Haven, Connecticut, doing a reading on a summer's night, and I missed the last ferry to Long Island, and I had to drive past.
The long way.
Great. I had to drive the long way around, and I had to drive past Greenwich, Connecticut, and there was roadworks, and I was stuck in traffic, and I saw the slip road, the exit ramp for Greenwich, and I'm like, Jesus, it's exactly 30 years since I was in Greenwich, Connecticut. And it's exactly 30 years since I was in Greenwich, Connecticut, and here I am now, actually, it wasn't 30 years. It was 20 years.
20 years.
And I'm like, here I am now going home to my family on Long Island. And I'm like, who'd have thunk it? So you end up in strange places. But I'm very happy to be where I am right now. I'm very happy about where I live. I'm very happy to have the job that I have and to get to do the work. I'm blessed that I get to do the work that I do in terms of having a platform in the Irish Times, which I would never have dreamt I would have ended up with a column in the Irish Times. That's a fantastic thing for me, and I really appreciate that. And I love my teaching job, absolutely love it. And
medieval history, is it?
It's a medieval and the ancient world, ancient Rome, Greece, Western civilization, 1 and 2, covers thousands of years of history. It's ridiculously broad, but I've been teaching it a long time, and I really enjoy it. Luckily for me, Hollywood makes a lot of movies about the stuff that I teach, so I can intersperse usually historically inaccurate clips of films, so that they don't have to listen to me for the whole 75 minutes. That's that's the secret to keeping them away,
Keep the lines open. Keep the lines open.
The people at the back always perk up when they go, he's putting on a clip of a movie. I'll see what this is. This could be interesting. Or sometimes when I get to World War I, sometimes show them the episode of Blackadder, the last episode of Blackadder. Most of them just don't get it, and then a couple of them do, and it's worth it just for that. If you turn a couple of people onto Blackadder, that's a win on any given day,
Dave Hannigan, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for joining Aran on Discs.
Thank you very much, Ross. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Business is booming, but you know what really helped? Xero, the accounting platform for small businesses. I used to think unpaid bills were just part of it. Ugh. But batch payments? Wow. Automated accounts payable? Even better. All in one place. That's a big one. And I can keep track from my phone while I get the job done. No bills in sight. What a life. Do right by yourself and your business and search XERO for your free trial. Conditions apply.
In Grand Rapids, art isn't just found in galleries. It's our way of life. You can find it in every riverside stroll, well-balanced pour, and evening encore, where music echoes over the water and the city's sculptures reach for the sky, inviting you to find a rhythm all your own, season after season, in pure Michigan. Find your season at experiencegr.com.